Brother was 7 years older, and he says George saw me selling stories, so he decided to. But they did.
So, with all this history of lawyers and writers and so on, the breakup of the family was why he didn't end up in a college somewhere in Virginia?
Well, I think, as we know nowadays, and we look now, there are ways, there are always ways that you can do now, but I would say in those days probably it was difficult for him. Now the other part of the family well, all right, his grandfather, the grandfather who was a lawyer, he was in the war and died soon after his health was broken. He died of tuberculosis. And the other brother, who was kind of the patriarch, they all went all the way down. But I think it was a matter of a family like you see now that just gets in collapse. His mother, he was born when his father was 49. And his mother's 49. His mother was 20-some years younger than he, and it was just one of those things where, again, you're in when was it? What am I talking about? 1912 or something like that. The country is not that well off, and then we're going into the war, which he went into when he was 21. And they didn't have the GI Bill. I think the thing was just the family, that particular family, while other members of the family, another branch of the family did okay, but they had a stable family. They had a father who working and all that, and they just, it just kind of fell apart. That happens. And George was older, if anybody was going to go ahead, but I think he kind of took over. He got a job. He took over taking care of his mother. This is a story we see over and over again. They just couldn't cope.
Yeah, Sidewise in Time is regarded as one of the first, if not the first, science fiction story about alternate worlds. And that really strikes me as such a quantum leap in thinking. I was wondering if he had ever shared with you any information as to how he came up with that idea.
It's in the book.
It's in okay. You don't want to reveal it.
It's in the book. He's sitting down talking to Arlen Germain, and he says, direct quoting from him, it was one of his speeches where he talked about it. He said, forward in time has been done to death, backwards in time is done to death, and they're sitting and they're talking, and he said, well, how about sidewise in time? And then he tells a story about, I can't relate it all now, about showing rats in a maze and kind of figuring it out that way, how he would do that. But yes, that's where that came from. See, this is the thing. You went to you knew the magazine people, you knew the editors. The editors went from place to place. They started new magazines, new this, and it was a network. And then he would go around. Even when we lived in Virginia, we would come up to New York once a year. And I mean, as a child, this was in my head. We're going to see the editors. We called them the editors. We're going to go see the editors. And we would go up, and we'd often stay with my mother's family. And I mentioned in the book, one of my fondest memories, and I wish I could remember who it was, we came up, and one of the editors took all us children, and I was quite small at the time, maybe 8, maybe 9 or something, and took us all out to Coney Island. And that's one of these brilliant moments in my life that I'll never forget, and I wish I knew. It's got to be one of these guys who was in one of these, astounding, amazing, what have you, and took the kids all out there. And as I say also later, and my father, we went to the World's Fair, we didn't go on any rides, we had to be educated, you know. So that was the only time I got to go on rides, and I never forgot it.
Mm-hmm. A practical question that I've been wondering about his practical detail in his career. I've been wondering about since the '60s. He did a string of television adaptations, and there was an odd publishing circumstance that he did an original science fiction novel called The Time Tunnel.
Time Tunnel, yeah.
And roughly a year afterwards, he had this other book called Time Tunnel, which was the series, both from the same publisher, both in print at the same time. And I'm thinking, what a nightmare for distribution and bookstores and
He sold the movie to Paramount. That's what he did. He sold it for probably peanuts. And of course, that's what they were doing then. It was like make a buck, you know, support my family. He sent 4 girls to college, you see, and that's what it was. And I'm glad you brought up the novelization, because some people, you know, some people have said, well, you know, he got down to where he was just doing novelization. His work wasn't good enough. My mother died in 1967. She was 70 years old. He was devastated. He was devastated. And, you know, he hardly did any work after that. And it just, you know, it was just whatever kind of almost pickup work. My mother was just, I think I might have quoted in the book that one of their friends said that Will has the best life in the world. He does whatever he wants and Mary helps him do it. So, I mean, she laid out his clothes every morning, you know. I mean, he was just devastated. So that's really what happened. And, you know, it was keeping on making a living, and so whatever came his way. But as far as being really creative and so forth after that.
But do you know, as a practical matter, what happened with having 2 books with virtually identical titles from the same publisher in print at the same time? I would think there would be a logistic problem. People would be buying the wrong book and being angry about it, or they'd buy the TV version and there'd be no sales of the first one.
All I can tell you is we get offers now you'd die for, but we don't own it. You know, they want to buy this, they want to make a television, they want to get the television series up, they want to do that and so forth. And no, all I can tell you is that he wrote the book, and then Paramount decided they wanted to do a television series, and he sold them probably for very little money. And then they probably decided that they wanted another. There was another one too, Time Slip.
Right.
Yeah, the 2 of them. They probably offered him to do that, and he did it. He really was not a sophisticated businessman. And of course, again, they didn't. I have a sales thing for Sidewise in Time. He got $200 for that. Science fiction didn't pay, and then even the movies and TV, that was new. He always told the story. Excuse me, I'll get you in a minute. But he always told the story that one of my sisters, the father-in-law of one of my sisters, wanted to buy a radio station for the son, my sister's husband, and Dad said, "Don't do it; it will never make any money." And of course, radio came back big.
Okay, now.